Well, thankfully, World Series is over. We got some Mariners updates, and we could finally move on to some Mariners baseball offseason. But until then, Mr. Steve, how are you doing? Because I've seen that you've been so busy with that soccer content, or shall I say football content.
Either way, man. Either way, whatever you want to pronounce it, I don't care. Yes, we're doing all right, man. We're having fun. But yes, thankfully the World Series is over. I don't know how you felt about it. It was two teams that are arguably dog shit that competed in the World Series. I watched the end of game one and I was like, you know what, I just can't do this. So that was it. You know what I mean? And when the Dodgers erased that 5-run fifth inning in game 5, that was pretty much it. And the Dodgers end up winning the World Series. So congratulations to the LA Dodgers. Your World Series has been bought and paid for. For the rest of us peons here, especially for teams like the Seattle Mariners that are scratching and clawing to find the right special sauce to actually get into the playoffs, right? Congratulations. I don't know, man. I don't think there's any nobility in, trying to buy yourself a World Series, but whatever, man, they got the money. So I guess cheers to you.
I mean, hey, if the Mariners had ownership like that, I'd more than take it because
yeah,
there are several years.
No. See, that's the thing is I'm jealous. And I'm first to admit that I'm 100% jealous that they have an ownership that's committed to bringing in every high price free agent to see what works and what doesn't work. And, of course, they're in the playoffs every year. And this year they win the World Series. So congratulations. Yeah, I am firm to admit that I'm 100% jealous. Without a doubt.
Nothing wrong with that at this point. At least you admit it. But hopefully Mariners will find a way to figure it out for this offseason, because it's safe to say the last 2 offseasons for the Mariners since that Cal Raleigh monster home run against Oakland has been disastrous, and it just gets more painful just looking at it. Like, we go back to the fact that the Mariners failed to capitalize much after 22, with the exception of Oscar Hernandez. 2023, they basically unloaded pretty much a huge significant part of the core, including getting rid of Eugenio Suarez, not giving at least giving a qualifying offer to Teoscar Hernandez, and now we've seen Teoscar Hernandez throwing shade at the Mariners. And interesting thing is, I want to kind of get deeper into this, is Teoscar the speculation was, he was just saying it was T-Mobile Park, but then he actually went even further and actually criticized the team culture. And I was thinking, now that's the opinion that I was looking for, because I thought you can't just say it was T-Mobile Park, because it would make sense. As long as the culture is good, he could have dealt with it. But the thing was, the culture was not good. He was saying that this team was basically encouraging the mindset of individuals rather than a unit, and that's at least what Dave Roberts does for his Dodgers, but something that Scott Service couldn't do. So I agree with you, Teoscar. You are not wrong at all.
No. And, the crazy thing is that I'm not surprised to hear it. Now, I am going to push back a little bit. I was not a big fan of Teoscar Hernandez or the trade that brought him to Seattle, and I didn't think that he was going to excel at T-Mobile Park. And sure enough, he had one of the worst offensive years of his career, only to rebound in Dodger Stadium. But to your point, that was, and we were saying this all this year too, right? That if they had more players in their lineup that were more committed to just it's okay if I draw a walk, or it's okay if I hit a single because I know the guy behind me is going to be able to drive me home, this team would be far more successful. But everybody felt like they had to be the guy to do something or this team would not win. So it fostered a culture of individualism instead of what he called a unit 100%. And that's the long and short of how you sum up the Scott Service era in Seattle Mariners baseball, where it's it's fine when you have a team full of young players who have no idea to win, right? When you graduate some of these prospects to the big league level and they're getting their first cup of coffee in the big leagues, that's fine because you're supposed to find your footing as a professional. But when there's expectations on the line where it's playoffs or better, The only way that that thing is going to work is if the collective individual believes in the group. That was not the case. And as you saw, the Mariners flame out in 2023, and of course they flamed out again in 2024, leading to Scott Service's removal. I was happy that Teoscar said it because it's about time somebody holds this team accountable. 100%.
That's exactly what he did. And we've even seen it from the likes of Corey Seager, the brother of Kyle Seager, said the same thing where I think it was an indirect shot at Mariners ownership saying that, oh yeah, us Texas Rangers, our ownership spends, takes good care of us. And I really do think there was a little factor in him speaking out for his brother because, the timing was just right.
I would love to hear Kyle go public. Kyle's never going to do it, but I would love it if Kyle Seager just puts management on blast. That would be creme brulee. That would just be, you know what I mean? But of course, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, and now at this point, it seems more likely that A-Rod is more likely to get a homecoming than Kyle Seager because Kyle Seager just won't do it. They could offer it to him, but he's going to say no.
It would have to be with certain people not in the franchise any longer before Kyle would ever come back. I would like the way that they did Kyle dirty. And it's one thing if a franchise does not want you back, and that's fine. Usually the powers that be will sit you down and tell you right to your face. The way that Kyle Seager was pushed out the door was via email. Like we thought it was bad. We thought it was bad that Scott Service found out on Twitter, and that's horrible, right? There's no excuse to literally leave your friend hanging out like that, but to do it in an email, to like be like, well, thank you for your time. Now get the fuck out. You know what I mean? It's like in an email, it's like, yeah, I would assume that if Kyle were to ever come back donning the number 15 jersey again, it would have to be with Jerry Dipoto long and gone from Seattle before he would ever step back in T-Mobile Park.
Well, until then, Jerry Dipoto will be doing us a favor for at least another year, unfortunately. Yeah. But we actually have a whole show to get into, so let's talk about the Gold Glove winners, which just happened. Cal Raleigh Mariners catcher, and surprisingly, Dylan Moore. I guess they have one for utility. Want to say congratulations to both of them. Cal Raleigh absolutely deserved it because he was a huge part of this team, despite his bat being iffy, which unfortunately for Mariners standards, actually good, I guess. But he did his part as a defensive catcher because nobody else could really do it. Like Sebi Zavala, no. Mitch Garver, no. But Cal Raleigh, one of the cornerstones of the franchise. So once again, congratulations. And Dylan Moore came a long way. From his OG days in 2019 when he made 3 errors in a row as a third baseman against Boston in the opening week of 2019, he is now a Gold Glover. So congratulations to you two gentlemen.
Oh yeah, man. The Gold Glove, man. That's I don't know what to make of it. Although I would probably assume that Cal Raleigh might get a Silver Slugger, just considering I think he had like 30 home runs this year, 30 plus. From the catching position, which is still a very big achievement. So I probably assume that maybe that might happen. But Gold Glove, I think it's a little bit more of a popularity contest, not necessarily the outset of defensive metrics per se. But I will say that it's not surprising to see that Cal won it. Just the way that he handles his pitching staff and his mobility behind the plate, being able to block balls in the dirt, his ability to get up out of his crouch and make plays. He's a very good defender, and that's always been his I guess his calling card. Even back in the minors when he came into the organization, there was a lot of people who were saying that defensively Cal Raleigh's fantastic. We just don't know about his bats. We know once he gets to the major league level, defensively he'll be fine. And of course, Cal developed. So it's good to see that. The weird one is Dylan Moore. I didn't see that one coming, man. I didn't know that they had a Gold Glove for utility. Usually, like when a utility guy has a good season, it's usually like an attaboy. It's like, hey, great season. You know what I mean? Like, that was fantastic. I seriously, call me surprised. I had no idea that utility guys got Gold Gloves. And hopefully he won't go writing this Gold Glove like J.P. Crawford did, when he wrote his Gold Glove. You know what I mean? That popularity is like, oh, he's a Gold Glover. It's like, whatever. It's like, cool, you got your token Gold Glove.
I remember we talked about it too. And now we're wondering, like, where's the Gold Glove awards for Mark McLemore? Like, did they ever give him? They should have gave it to him back in 2000 and 2001 as a utility player as well. So let's mail him a trophy.
I think what they should do is they should have the Mark McLemore Award for the best utility player in the league. Like, that would be pretty cool. The Mark McLemore Award. Like,
that would be, yeah.
I don't think you can like give Mark McLemore a Gold Glove, like, you know, in perpetuity of your great seasons, like in the early 2000s. But what you can do is you can go full utility, you know, utility infielder award. You could just name it after him. That'd be great.
Let's just do it, because Mark McLemore was one of the most versatile players that I had ever seen. And when I was watching baseball back then, of course, I thought Rich Amaral was versatile. But then once we get to Mark McLemore, even more versatile.
Maybe we can do a Charles Gibson Pinch Runner Award, Runner of the Year Award. You know what I mean? Or the who is a good bench player, obscure bench player? Who am I thinking about?
2004 Dave Hansen for pinch hitting.
Dave Hansen. I was gonna think Doug Strange. I was gonna say we can also do the John Marzano Backup Catcher of the Year Award. That would be pretty cool.
Guy who stood up to Paul O'Neill in '96.
Yeah, Joe Oliver.
Joe Oliver, 2000 third string catcher, filled in pretty well for Tom Lampkin and Dan Wilson, who were injured in the 2000 season. So lots of awards to produce.
Dude, I'm a Tom Lampkin guy through and through, man. When's the last time we've seen a left-handed catcher? Crash Davis, maybe?
Yep. He told the guy that the guy was going to pitch that Duke was going to pitch that fastball.
That's right. That's funny.
Well, yeah. So that's the Gold Gloves, and now next on the list, we're going to talk about Jorge Polanco, and unfortunately, I'm going to say it. I was still okay making that trade. I would do it again. It's just, unfortunately, it didn't work out. And there was risk. Like, I knew that there was risk going into it, that he had injury concerns. He was getting into his 30s, which he had just turned 30 for this season. And there were questions on, and we know how it goes when a Mariners offensive player goes to Scott Service, that player pretty much just disappears and does pretty much nothing at the level that they did previously. But this season had 16 home runs with a .213 batting average and a .296 OBP, which was very alarming. But fortunately, he was at least able to do a little bit better with a .230 average with .309 OBP, but it's really not saying much at all. Like, it really isn't, which it was absolutely no surprise that the Mariners did decline his option, because it would have been around the $12 million, and there was really not much of a reason to keep him if he was just going to be another year older, and if he was going to still have these injury problems, which he did. And that's when Ryan Bliss took over, and he actually did kind of okay, but it just wasn't there for him for this season. And even with Dan Wilson, I didn't think it was worth it. I think maybe, hopefully, with that very little budget the Mariners have, hopefully they can find someone better. They still have Ryan Bliss that they can experiment, and still Cole Young to at least give them full time in the spring training. Right. So we'll see where that goes. But any thoughts on that Jorge Polanco departure?
Yeah, man, the revolving door at second base continues, man. We haven't had a steady second baseman since Robbie Cano. But I'll say this, right? You know, you mentioned that he turned 30. This was his age-30 season. He already had a decade of baseball prior to coming to Seattle with the Minnesota Twins. So there was already mileage on his body coming into Seattle with all the injury risk. And if you remember, he came into spring training not 100%, and sure enough, he got himself injured. And it would have been beneficial for the Mariners just to hold him out until he was 100% ready to come back. I thought they brought him back a little too soon. But the question isn't, is this surprising? Because I think it's not surprising whatsoever, because the Mariners aren't going to pay him $12.5 million or whatever the option was. But the question is would you bring him back on like a $1 or $2 million 1-year deal at a price point that makes a little bit better sense, with the knowledge that he's actually going to be 100% healthy, or as close to 100% healthy as he possibly can? because I still believe that he still can be a productive player as long as he's healthy. You know what I mean? That was my biggest problem with Polanco last season, when he was rarely healthy. He was like, there was a good stretch of time where he was still playing hurt. So it was never a surprise to see him get off to the start that he had, or when he came back. I mean, you kind of saw it towards the end of the season. He played a little bit better, but for the most part, it was a lost season. So to me, that's the question. It's, do you want to roll with a guy? Do you want to roll with some of your prospects, or do you want to bring them back at a number that makes more sense to the organization? With the understanding that if it doesn't go well, you can always DFA them, and then of course you always have your prospects in your back pocket. Or do you go out and trade for a second baseman that possibly has club control?
Yeah, those are definitely options to go through. And I think as of now, given the Mariners' budget constraints, I really do think that, and I already said it, that giving Cole Young or Ryan Bliss a shot is probably going to be a lot more likely than the Mariners getting a second base. And there are plenty of players on the market, which we will go over later in the show. But now with Jorge Polanco out of the way, which leaves a hole in second base where, we haven't had a consistent second baseman since Robinson Cano. And now we are going to go into our good old friend, Mitch Haniger. And
Mitch,
as of now, he still has not made his decision on whether he's going to opt out of his contract or opt in. We've been reading in the articles and speculations that there was a Sports Illustrated article on why he hasn't picked up the option yet. Maybe some were saying that, does he want to retire? Does he want to give away? Does he want to put the $15 million on the table? Which, if he does, that'd probably be one of the most honorable things that a Mariner would ever do for this team. But let's be real, $15.5 million. He would be insane to not take that contract. Now, granted, we would love him to, in a baseball perspective, we would love him to make that sacrifice. But for someone that may not make $15 million again, that is probably not realistic. He would probably take that option, and he should. The question is what's going to happen after that. But until we see that decision, we don't know. So what are your thoughts on Mitch and his season that he had?
Hey, Mitch, do me a favor. Look at me. Just come to the camera. Look at me, my friend. Be selfish. Opt into your deal, even if that means that you're going to be a part-time player. Pinch hitter versus left-handers, whatever the case may be, get your $17.5 million before you do go out riding into the sunset. Remember now, this was a franchise that let Mitch walk after 2022 because they didn't want to pay him. So then he goes to San Francisco and gets his 3-year deal with opt-outs and whatever the case may be. And Mitch has deservedly earned this 3-year deal. From a Mariner fan perspective, I would probably assume that they want him to walk away from it. But no, absolutely not. Like, for me, this is all about playing time, right? There's a reason why, I think they've had 5 days, and I think today at some point on the Eastern time, I think it's like maybe 6 o'clock he has to make that decision. And I would probably assume that him and his agent are not just talking to the Mariners, but also talking to other teams to find out if there's going to be solid playing time, right? Because if you're going to opt out of $17.5 million, you want to make sure that the team that you do go sign for, you're going to be able to play baseball. Because at the end of the day, Mitch wants to play baseball. So, but that being said, there's not going to be a better deal in baseball than the one that he has right here on this 1-year deal. So, yeah, you would have to weigh. You have to weigh what your priorities are. But that being said, only a fool would walk away from this guaranteed money. So, this is what I would do if I was Mitch. I would opt into the deal and go to spring training with Seattle, and I would play for my 4 months until we head into the deadline before I would ultimately get traded to a contender, so I can play. I can play in the postseason. You know what I mean? I would do whatever I can to be as productive as I can for the first 4 months of the season, get to the deadline. And then at that point, it's only a month and a half left to the end of the season. And so it's going to be less of a risk for teams to trade for me and then ultimately make my way out of town. Or if you want to ride off in the sunset as a Mariner, you most certainly can. after the 2025 season, but don't turn it down and don't opt out unless you know for a fact you have a similar deal on the table, which I would probably assume that he doesn't. I would just take the 17.5.
I mean, let's take a look at Mitch Haniger's numbers, and it would more than justify. No, I just want to tell everyone why it would justify. Like, the numbers back up on why he should take that contract, and I want to compare his numbers to Ken Griffey Jr. because that's how it felt watching Mitch Haniger. Like, it was basically watching 2010 Ken Griffey Jr., but with the home runs. That's what it basically was. And their numbers are pretty much similar. He had a 286 OBP in 2024, while Griffey had a 250. Now, Mitch Haniger was slightly better than Ken Griffey Jr., but imagine if Mitch didn't hit those home runs, then he's basically is Ken Griffey Jr. 2010.
Right. The plan was for Mitch to be a part-time player to begin with anyways, but then on opening day, he hits the home run, and Scott Service is like, oh, maybe we got Mitch a Volt. So he kept playing him and playing him and playing him, and he kept sitting Luke Raleigh that entire time. And it's like, Scott, just go back to the original plan. You're going to be okay.
And that plan was working for at least a game.
And that never materialized, and the Mariners struggled. But I try to put myself in that position of the ball player, and it's like, well, the reality is you're going to be 34 years old, so the time is definitely not on your side. And if you elect to be a free agent, the best you might be able to get is like a 1-year deal worth maybe $8 million, but there's going to be a lot of escalators put into that contract. So your base salary is going to be incredibly low, but it could be up to this if you perform, depending on your body's ability to stay healthy, right? So, or you can just opt into this deal, which gives you $17.5 million, regardless of if your body breaks down or not. And considering it's the Seattle Mariners that pushed you out the door 2 years ago because they didn't want to pay you, now you have the leverage to be like, sorry, sucker, I'm taking my money.
Yeah, that's for disrespecting me after
and
2022.
You get over on the Mariners. And I'm in a position where I absolutely love seeing Mitch Haniger having the leverage to get over on the Mariners. I'm sorry. Maybe call me callous, call me what you will, but I like that idea that the Mariners cannot get out from underneath this like they did with Robbie Ray.
Yeah, they really did Robbie Ray dirty too. And I actually still...
He tears his AC, he tears his UCL, and they're like, see ya, you're somebody else's problem. By the way, I like that trade, by the way. I like the idea of making Robbie Ray somebody else's problem. Now, I thought, and I'm sure you thought too, that maybe Robbie Ray was going to come back and be a shell of his former self. Turns out you and I were both wrong, and Robbie Ray had a pretty good August and September for the Giants. And I guess you and I were kind of worried, you and I were like, well, damn, we kind of wish we had Robbie Ray back. But, now we're saddled with Mitch Haniger, and it's like Mariners can't get out from underneath this problem, and chances are pretty good Mitch is going to take 17.5, as he should.
15.5.
Oh, I thought it was 17.5 this year.
I saw 15.5, but it's okay. Either way, it's still 15 million at least that he's going to get.
It's still 15.5 million that you and I are not making. So
yeah. Well, before we get into the next parts, but I just want to say, here's my prediction on Mitch Haniger. He's going to take the 17. Now you got me to say 17. He's going to take the option of 15.5. He's going to do it. Just face it, accept reality. He is going to, because he'd be an idiot if he did. Now, I'll call him honorable, sure, but think about it. No one's going to opt out of $15.5 million. Who would do that? I wouldn't know. But what's going to happen, he's going to do it. The Mariners are going to try to desperately be like, hey, can you take like a little bit of a pay cut? Mitch Haniger would be like, he's going to say, ha, 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 no. But what may happen, because Jared Dipoto, we also know that he's afraid of giving away prospects to get rid of his contract, because why would he do that too? The next best option, or this could be the option, You do the Bobby Bonilla deal. You're gonna have so you cut him, but you still gotta pay his contract and spread it out with an interest rate. I think my prediction is they'll give him the Bobby Bonilla.
But you got to remember, though, the player has to agree to that, right? So, and if you want to restructure a contract, not only do you have to get the approval of your owner, which I don't think the Mariners would want to do that, right? So, like when the Mariners traded Robbie Cano to the Yankees, right? The Mariners had to eat a piece of that contract, and then every single year for like the next 5-6 years, they still owed a portion of that deal. In some instances, it kind of hamstringed them, right? So if, like, would the Mariners give Mitch Haniger $1 million a year for the next 15 years when they can just bite the bullet and just eat the $15 million this year? I think business-wise, that makes more sense just to eat the upfront cost. But it's also up to the player as well, too. Does he want to do that? Does he want to spread this out over 15 years, or like maybe it's 1.5 for 12 years or whatever the case may be? Does he want to do that? Would he rather just get paid it now? You know what I mean? It's a good question. It's a very good question. If it were me, it doesn't matter, because either way you're getting $15 million. So do you want that once a year for 15 years, or do you just want it now? I would probably want it now. Because you can, because there's investment opportunities, right? Where you can actually, if you have it, then you can grow it over the next 15 years. You know what I mean? There's like a multitude of ways you can make that money grow. So I would probably assume that both parties would probably just want Mitch Haniger to get this over now. But also, here's another thing, right? Will the Mariners penalize him for opting in? Because I think you just brought up something interesting, though, right? Is Jerry Dipoto going to turn around and try to trade him with prospects to get that salary off their books for opting in?
That's the thing, though. But would Jerry do that? And it depends which prospect that he would give up. If it's a top 10, I don't think he'd want to do that, knowing that he gave up Jonathan Clase, I almost said Diaz, Jonathan Clase to get Yimi Garcia, which unfortunately didn't work out. And I still don't fault the trade, because it was to help the bullpen and it was supposed to work. It just ran into bad luck and timing.
Yeah, Jimmy got hurt. But, but they did that with, what's his face, the first baseman that they gave an extension prior to his major league debut, Evan White. They found a way to get him off the books as well, too. They did the same thing with, what's his bucket? The left-handed pitcher who went to Atlanta.
Marco Gonzalez
as well, too. So that Jerry is not opposed to getting rid of salary or getting rid of prospects in order to get rid of salary. So I think the Mariners are hoping that he declines it. That's like the best. That would be like the best case possible. But I don't think Jerry's going to get the luxury of Mitch Haniger helping him out.
No, not going to happen. But hey, Mariners, they made their own bed and they get to sleep in it. And it's kind of karma that they got rid of Mitch Haniger to save money, but then they got him back anyway, and then he stunk.
But the smart thing was to bring back Mitch Haniger after 2022. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been the smart thing to do, because then you dictate the negotiations on your terms. So you actually can lock yourself into a contract that's a little bit more team friendly than taking a contract that the Giants handed to him. You know what I mean? Like, now you're operating on somebody else's term. You can't control, like, you don't control it. You know what I mean? That's the problem of making those type of deals, is now you're stuck, you're basically up shit's creek. So I hope, like, seriously, and I hope Mitch sticks it to him. I really do. Because I want Jerry Dipoto gone. So this makes it look worse.
Well, we all did. I was devastated the moment the news came out that John Stanton said, "Oh yeah, Jerry Dipoto earned one more year," and we were all like, "No, he didn't. Look what he did in the 2023 offseason of going to 2024. I think that's actually his worst offseason. Can we name an offseason any worse than that?
Let me see.
Because post 2015 to 16, you couldn't really say much.
No.
At least you got Chris Iannetta. 16 to 17 was getting Mitch Haniger.
So hold on real quick. Are we talking in the Jerry Dipoto era or just in Mariners?
No, Jerry Dipoto era. Because I'm thinking, when I said 2016 wasn't too bad, 2017 was what got Mitch Haniger. 2018 was a nothing burger, really.
Well, from 20 to 21. And I'm trying to remember because we didn't really have that much activity.
I can do it. I got this.
Outside of bringing in home dude that they eventually traded to the Astros for Abraham Toro, we brought that dude in.
We're talking about just off season though, but I think I got it. So 2018.
No, that's what I'm saying. They didn't do anything that off season except for bringing in that reliever. For the most part, they kept that entire roster intact from the 2020 season to 2021.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking back in 2018. I already said that, but 2018 wasn't really nothing bad, just nothing great. 2019 was the purge, which I was actually a proponent of that, so I thought that was a good offseason.
2018 wasn't 2018 the year we brought in Gene Segura?
That was 2017. 17 was Segura and Haniger, and I thought that was a fantastic trade, and it still is. But then Ketel Marte did well anyway, so it's kind of a push at this point.
True.
2018 was the failure. 18 was the failure of Ohtani. 19 was the purge. 2020 was like they didn't really do anything. It was just on a continuation of the rebuild. 21 was what brought them. Well, 20 actually got them Kendall Graveman. 2021, I don't really remember what they did. Wasn't really much either. 22 was a great offseason because that was the Robbie Ray, Adam Frazier, and getting up Julio.
And then we ended up with Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez. I was going to say the 95 offseason going into 96 was a terrible offseason coming off that playoff year because we replaced all-stars in Tino Martinez.
And Jeff Nelson.
Yeah, Jeff Nelson. And we lost Mike Flowers, and we replaced him with basically AAA players. Although we did bring in Paul Sorrento to fix first base.
And Mike Jackson.
But Sterling Hitchcock was gone the next year.
Russ Davis couldn't feel worth a dang.
Russ Davis. I was going to say the 95 to into the 96 season, that offseason was terrible. Yeah, but
in terms of just Jerry, I would say 23 to 24 was easily his worst. I think it was because that's when you still had a good core and you squandered much of it.
22 to 23 was equally as bad. When you let go of Mitch Haniger and Carlos Santana and you replace it with AJ Pollock and Tommy La Stella.
Colton Wong.
And Colton Wong, and your only true upgrade is a dude that didn't necessarily fit the parts of the sum in Oscar Hernandez.
Wow.
Yeah, that offseason was not good. Especially having the momentum of your first playoff appearance in 22 seasons. And then the entire city of Seattle is behind you, and you're expecting not only to get back to that level, but also double that. And your response to it is Tommy La Stella and AJ Pollock. And, it's like, dude, like you failed to capitalize on the momentum. Actually, I think that's actually worse, considering that we didn't this last offseason, we weren't coming off a playoff appearance. And, that's the thing. And don't get me wrong, I agree with you because it was a radical shift to basically blow up the core and then have these parts. But when you look at the totality of 22 going into 23, nothing made sense. That was like a radical failure.
That's a good point.
That was a radical failure.
And I remember I had a video, and the video was titled, after the Teoscar trade and seeing a lot of inactivity, I titled it as Mariners are doing the bare minimum in the offseason. And I had some comments where people said I was crazy. It's like, no, it's too early. They'll figure out something. And look where we are. The video was exactly spot on. And I was saying it before this was before Tommy La Stella and Colton Wong. Actually, no, we got Colton Wong. It was before La Stella and what's his name? AJ Pollock. And the Mariners also still paid a good amount. It was like $8 million for 1 year. So they were too cheap to keep Mitch Haniger, but you had no problems paying $8 million
Well,
for Pollock.
Here's the weird thing, right? But you also have to go back to the priorities. What was the priority going into 2022, right? It wasn't to win the World Series. It was to end the playoff drought. That was the mission, to end the playoff drought. Mission accomplished. That gave them goodwill because they finally got over the hurdle and got into the playoffs. Fair enough, right? But that being said, that was by design, right? It was okay. That was our expectation, was to finally break the playoff drought. Mission accomplished. And so now, since you bought all this goodwill, there never should be animosity, except for the one problem is now you got everyone's expectations high, and so everything that you don't capitalize on is going to be looked at as a missed opportunity. And that's why the goodwill is gone with this front office, is because they completely failed to capitalize on every single opportunity. And when you see free agents like what's his bucket with Chicago,
Cody Bellinger,
Matt Chapman goes to a different team. You know what I mean? It's like, we're not talking about guys that are that cost the world. You know what I mean? These guys are going to be affordable for the Seattle Mariners, guys who will radically make your team better. And then when you see them go somewhere else, it's like, what are we doing here? Are we competing for a World Series or not?
It's very tragic, and which is why we went from Mitch Haniger to criticizing Jerry Dipoto. We were really hoping, before we get into the next segment, that on top of Scott Service being fired, we were also hoping it was Jerry Dipoto. Like, I was thinking, fine, have him for the end of the season because nothing's going to happen anyway. But you should have fired him after this season, because he did. You know what? It was that last trade deadline that saved his baseball season. That's what it was. It was because he at least had a good trade deadline, but it wasn't enough to keep him for 2025 and beyond. It really wasn't.
You know, that's why I don't have any faith in this offseason. We're going to get into free agents or international free agents, things like that. It's like, it doesn't matter, because we already know exactly what's going to happen. There is literally no faith in Jerry Dipoto. I know. Like that, my only hope is that this team starts off slow to the point where Mariner ownership feels like they have to dump him because expectations were not made. So I'm kind of hoping there's going to be like a repeat of Jack Zaremczyk. You know, like Jack Zaremczyk's final season when he got shit canned in July. That's what I'm hoping. Let's do it.
Jack Zaremczyk didn't get fired until September
or whatever
of 2015.
Or whatever.
No, but
you get what I'm saying.
Best case scenario right now is they can just fire him right now. They can fire him during the show, but they're not going to, because he ended the drought, and he got lucky doing it, because it took Jesse Winker to get into a fight, which and him getting pizza, which arguably sparked the 14-game winning streak. So honestly, making it in 2022, it was just pure luck and just perfect timing.
Dude, you make it sound so funny. Like, he got into a fight and he got some pizza.
He did get pizza. He got pizza by a Mariners fan. And it wasn't even good pizza either. Like, at least get him gourmet pizza.
That's funny. And he got a pizza.
Got pizza. And he's contributed well for the Mets as of now. So now to free agents, and I really didn't want to cover free agents, but I feel like I have to because everyone else is doing it. So I want to talk about it too, reluctantly, but
if everybody jumped off a bridge, would you? Or would you have the common sense to be like, you know what, dude, I'm not jumping off a bridge.
Oh, just like that movie Horrible Bosses, where if I shove coconut into this, you do that too? You sure? Because I got some coconuts, I guess.
All right, give me 1 second real quick, all right?
And while he's taking a break, here's our word from our sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a mobile ticketing app for sporting events, concerts, and other events. They make the buying experience easier by the app ranking each ticket from 0 to 10 to see if you are getting a good deal, and you can see exactly where you are sitting. I regularly use that app, and I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with SeatGeek. Use my promo code RoofTopSports to get $20 off of your first purchase. Link to the code, app, and website will be in the description, so take advantage, and thank you.
No, SeatGeek.
Yes, SeatGeek.
$20 off. Get out of here. So what you're saying is if I go on to SeatGeek and enter the promo code RoofTopSports, I will get $20 off my purchase? Get out of here.
Yes. Let's do it. Yeah, I thought that was a good pee break for you. But let's get into The free agency. Okay, fine. Free agency. So Mariner fans are saying it. I read on Twitter all the time and watch some other content creators. But they're saying, let's get Anthony Santander. Let's get Gleyber Torres. Let's get these guys. Let's get Blake Snell. I'm like, okay, slow down. As much as we would love to see that happen, honestly, if the Mariners got Anthony Santander, I would go absolutely ballistic in excitement. And the crazy thing is, I think we talked about before the show, he's not even A-level free agent. He's more like a B to a C, who had, by the way, kind of a lucky career year, and he may not repeat that. The thing is, I don't see it happening. Like, the best the Mariners can maybe do that I can see feasibly are the likes of Ha-Sung Kim of the San Diego Padres. That's the most realistic I can see because he's opting out of his $8 million contract. So he'll probably get like 10 or 11. So basically we're basically getting the same figures as like Jorge Polanco. But when I look at the other list, like I see the big names like Pete Alonso. We all know that's not going to happen. Juan Soto, we know that's not going to happen. And the moment the Mariners do make moves like that is the moment that we better start hiding in bomb shelters. That's because I think the Mariners getting those type of guys would be the sign of the apocalypse. And I thought when the Mariners got Cano, I also thought that was the sign of the apocalypse. But looking at the first baseman market, Christian Walker, Pete Alonso, I don't see it happening. Like the most realistic I'm seeing on that list is like Carlos Santana. But hey, there's Ty France.
That's what I was just going to bring that up. Ty France is a free agent as well too, and he actually had a very good finish to his 2024. But I will say that Blake Snell makes a ton of sense when you consider that I do think that the Mariners will trade one of their starting pitchers. I think you and I would probably both agree that it might be Luis Castillo.
I want it to be.
I do too, right? Because it doesn't make any sense to trade any of the four other starters. But that being said, when you look at the Mariner organization as far as starting pitching down on the farm, there's not somebody that's ready to get called up at this moment. So if you do trade a guy like Luis Castillo to get a bat in return or get multiple bats in return, you're going to have a need in your rotation. And getting a guy like Blake Snell makes a tremendous amount of sense. He's going to be healthy coming into 2025. And because he signed a contract like he did with San Francisco that had outs, it might be out of the realm of possibility to think that he would do the same thing in Seattle. You guarantee the first year at $20 million around there, but then there's contract out. So if he wants to go to be a free agent, he can. I would probably assume the Mariners would probably want 2 years before that happened, but he's a hometown guy who wants to be in Seattle. He was
begging.
He was begging all off season to come. So now might be the actual time to do it. And I actually think from a realistic standpoint, the Mariners are more likely to hand out big contracts to pitchers, not necessarily position players. So from that context, I probably would think that might be a little bit more realistic than, say, Gleyber Torres. I don't think the Mariners have any interest in Torres.
I watched him in the World Series and I looked at his numbers.
I like Gleyber. I like him, and I think he would be a steady presence. But a part of me thinks that the second base job is going to go to an internal candidate. Now, whether I don't think it's going to be Ryan Bliss, but I probably would assume that come spring training,
Cole Young.
Cole Young, thank you very much. I was going to call him Case Young, but yeah, Cole Young. They're going to bring him to spring training, and they'll probably give him an opportunity to win the job. You know what I mean? And if it's seen that maybe he might be a little over his head at this point, maybe they go get like a 1 year stopgap. Like an Ahmed Rosario type guy. But other than that, I just have a feeling second base is going to go to an internal candidate, or they're going to trade for a guy that's got club control.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because that's exactly what they did trading for Randy Arozarena, because he has a very attractive contract now. While you were saying things about Blake Snell, I saw his contract in 2025, or was supposed to be. He was going to be due for $30 million, which, by the way, did get opted out.
Now, by the way,
for Luis Castillo,
that's not to say that he's going to get $30 million on the open market, because that's not going to happen, right? So what's going to end up happening is, I would probably assume that it's going to be between 20 and 23 per year.
And I would do that.
And I would think that the Mariners would want 2 years guaranteed before an opt-out comes. You know what I mean? Because you just don't want to get them on a 1-year deal. Otherwise, you would just try to sign them to a 1-year deal, right? So there would be like a 3-year deal or a 5-year deal with an opt-out after 2. You get what I'm saying? Something like that.
I would do that because, and I still don't think they're going to do that because you're already paying Luis Castillo $24 million a year. So why not just get Blake Snell, trade Castillo? And I would think that he still has value to get some kind of a bat because the Mariners were at least able to get Randy Arozarena off of middle to low tier prospects. And I would think that the return for Luis Castillo's
going to get you a couple bats, right? The thing about it is Castillo's not an ace, and neither is Blake Snell. But the going rate for upper echelon arms like Blake Snell is probably going to cost you anywhere between 18 to 23 million. So I would probably assume that the Mariners would try to split the difference on that. But that being said, right now you have internal guys that are more aces than Luis Castillo. So you try to sell high on Castillo to get the most in return. And then, maybe you can get a hometown discount with a dude like Blake Snell.
Why not do that? Because throughout the 2023 to 24 offseason, he was raising the 12th man flag at a Seahawks game. He went to a Huskies game saying, come get me. He was literally saying, I think he was literally trying to sales pitch himself to get him onto the Mariners. And the most embarrassing thing I remember was the San Francisco Giants and the Houston Astros actually went out of their way to visit Shoreline, Washington to watch Blake Snell. And yet the Mariners, who all they had to do was just drive maybe 30 minutes at most.
10
at most.
Traffic, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Traffic, yeah.
To just say, hey, Blake, join us. But no, you had the Giants and the Astros jumping on their planes to get to Blake Snell.
The dude lives in Shoreline in the offseason. The dude is Washington through and through. He wants to be a Seattle Mariner, so make it happen.
He has a pizza named after him at a small pizza place in Shoreline.
I did not know that. What is it called?
I got to get back to you on. Oh man, you know what? I'm going to do the research.
Is it the Snellenberger? Is it the Snellenberger pizza? What is it? So
let me find out because I want to advertise these guys. I want to promote these guys. Blake Snell Pizza Shoreline.
He's Googling it.
Oh, Spiro's Pizza and Pasta in Shoreline. Okay. So check it out there. They have the Blake Snell pizza. I didn't eat it last time, and I should have. But you know what? Maybe if the Mariners go get Blake Snell. Actually, no. I'll do even better. I'll go to that pizza place. I will eat the pizza, review it, and then say, hey, Mariners, go get Blake Snell.
Based on the pizza. I like it. So I like that. Too bad we don't have a Spiro's Pizza and Pasta out here in Michigan because I would go eat the Blake Snell pizza because that actually sounds pretty good.
I'll just airlift it to you.
That would be excellent. Are you going to airlift it by Amazon drone? So
oh, no.
What was I going to say? We got lost in the sauce. No pun intended. Pizza sauce.
Pizza sauce. No, we were just talking about Blake Snell, and I was just adding to it. We were saying it's the most realistic free agent signing at this point.
Yeah, because I don't see okay, so and I dude, I at the sound of repeating myself because I've said this so many goddamn times on your show for a while now. Jerry Dipoto does not believe in handing out contracts to position players because Jerry Dipoto believes in roster flexibility. He likes guys that play multiple positions. That's just his MO. But he also covets club control. So he's not going to, that's the thing. It's like when everybody was screaming for Matt Chapman, what did he do? Not sign Matt Chapman. It's just not going to happen, right? They're not going to pay premium dollars for free agents, position players, but they will for pitchers. So that's what makes me think Blake Snell might be in play for the Mariners. The only way that they're going to bring in free agents is if it's on a 1-year deal, like a veteran on a 1-year deal, which is why I might consider Carlos Santana, Justin Turner. They might bring Justin Turner back if they feel like he can facilitate a spot on their bench on a 1-year deal. I know that Mariner players loved Justin Turner last year when he came over, so that's definitely an option. But as far as guys like Pete Alonso, I if that happens, it's wow. You know, like Jerry Dipoto is really going for it because his job is on the line. Like that would be the logical reason why a big name like that would come here. You know, of course, my dream is Juan Soto. And I think the Mariners should back up the Brinks truck and just give him whatever he wants on a 10-year deal because that dude's only 26 years old. So that makes sense. But that being said, you know, for this team, you're going to have to think trade because that's Jerry Dipoto's MO. He likes making deals like that. And he's got a minor league organization filled with talented young kids that would fetch a hefty haul in trades. And the Mariners have holes all over their infield. And I would probably assume right field. I'm not comfortable with Victor Robles getting everyday games.
I'm not, and we're probably the only two Mariner fans that would say that.
Yeah, and so you know, he's got an injury history as well too. And so if you give him the job by May, he's going to be on the DL. So they have a hole in right field as well too. So I would think that what's going to end up happening is you're going to see a lot of trades for a lot of young guys with club control. So think of young players, you know. So that's, to me, I think we can talk about free agents, but chances are by January, you're probably not going to see the Mariners make a lot of noise in the free agent market.
Yeah, fair enough. Which we're so used to with Jerry Dipoto, and we could just go over it as much as we could, but
sure.
We're going to go over the last part of the show. It's going to be, there's a couple possible, maybe international free agents that, now we're talking people from like Japan and Korea. We're not talking about the guys from Dominican Republic, which I may have gotten that mistaken by, but there are a couple.
But those are international free agents, and there is a lot of good talent from the DR, man.
There is, but are we willing to wait like 10 years? No, we're not.
No. Well, we're still like, but by the way, Home Dude is going to be great in 2029, right? The next
Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah, there you go. Yordan Alvarez. Yeah.
Let's do that.
We can't trade him.
Who knows?
It's going to be Yordan.
Woo! But anyways, couple free agents possibilities. Kazuma Okamoto, and I'm pretty sure I said that correctly and got the pronunciations. Here was his statistic. It was 27 home runs in 143 games, 83 RBIs, 280 batting average with a 362 OBP, slugging of 501, and an OPS of 863. Now, do I expect him to copy and paste that into Major League Baseball? Of course not. Unless he's Ichiro or Shohei Ohtani, we should not expect him to do something like that. But it is maybe an option the Mariners can go for, because they do have a hole on third base. And if it says he's a third baseman, then maybe the Mariners should give that a shot, which we didn't even talk about that too, that the third base has a massive hole. Like, I think it's almost bigger than the black hole. That's how bad it is, because Josh Rojas really did leave a black hole in third base along with Luis Urias, which is why he's not on the team anymore. And the other free agent, Kim Hae-sung. Yes, I have to say it the Korean way, but in the American way, it's Hae-sung Kim. Or shall I say, Hae-seung Kim. That's how they say it, but it's Hae-sung Kim or Kim Hae-sung.
Yeah.
Exactly. He was a 326 batter in the KBO, Korean Baseball League. A 383 OBP, 841 OPS, 458 slugging. Not really a home run hitter, but we don't need home run hitters. We just need a guy that can just make contact, and he can steal bases. So those are the two possible free agents.
Huh? There's a reason why I wanted the dude from Korea last offseason, who ended up signing with the Giants.
Lee Jung-hoo.
Yeah, because that dude was a monster contact hitter. It was a shame he got hurt, but
no, he had good contact. I was watching him, and he gave me some Ichiro feelings. Now, he wasn't Ichiro like in copy and paste, but
right.
His name was Jung-hoo Lee, but I call him Lee Jung-hoo. So Koreans, Americans saying things differently.
Well, you know, when you look at Kazuma Okamoto, man, like you can dial into the power, and for sure, because it's like there was a stretch from 2018 to 2023 where he hit 30 plus home runs, right? So it's like that dude can hit for power. But the one thing that I look at is the true slugging. I mean, he had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out of 7 where he slugged over 500, and his OPS is going to be like what 830 or better for that same time frame. So the dude has legit power, but it also looks like that dude has legit contact as well too. So that dude is like a 4-tool player coming over. Let me check something real quick. He's 28 years old. So that's the thing. He's got looks like he's been playing for the Yomiuri Giants for quite some time. But so 2015 he was age 19. So he's been in the league for about 10 years now. So he's got a little mileage on him. But that being said, for the next couple of years, like it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to sign the dude for like on a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal, and expect at least a good portion of that deal to be facilitated numbers wise. So I would have no problem taking a flyer on
Okamoto or Hesung Kim, not Hasung Kim, but now there's going to be a Hesung Kim. Or if you want to say it the Korean way, it's Kim Hesung. But
Kim
hey,
I like that. I like that a little bit better.
Yes, we say our names by last names first. That's why, like in soccer or football, they always call him Hong-Min Son, but it's really Son Heung-min.
Son Heung-min. Yeah, Son Heung-min.
Yeah, you just need pronunciation practice. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. I'm used to it.
When Son Min or no Heung-min Son. Yeah. Actually, you know what I just do? I just call him Sonny.
Just call him Sonny. Just make it easy on yourself.
Yeah.
But here's the unfortunate thing. As much as the free agents that we just talked about are very attractive, could be attractive in price, the problem is Jerry Dipoto doesn't even do that. I don't even think he's even... I think Yusei Kikuchi was his only international player he successfully got on the team. That's the problem I have.
The crazy thing is the Mariners were the flag bearers when it came to Japanese baseball players, because of Nintendo ownership and because of their majority owner. The Mariners were a beacon for Japanese players. I mean, the Mariners played regular season games in Japan. They had the Michael Jordan of Japanese baseball players on this team for well over a decade. We also had Shigetoshi Hasagawa. We had Kenji Jojima. So the Mariners have had
Iwasashi Iwakuma.
Yeah, thank you. Hisashi Iwakuma. We've had our fair share of Japanese baseball players, and all of them were very productive for us, right? And that was the thing. That was the one thing I actually appreciated about the Mariners was that when it came to good Japanese players, they weren't shy of bringing them over, making plays. And I know that Jerry Dipoto and the Mariners did make a full court press for
Shohei
Ohtani back in 2016. Even go so
18.
far as to have 18. Even going so far as to have Ichiro Suzuki lay the groundwork. Obviously, it came down to dollars and cents, and the Mariners just didn't make sense. So it's a shame because at one point this team probably had the inside track on every Japanese player coming over, and now it just seems like those days are long gone. And it's a shame too because a guy like Okamoto would actually fit the team quite well.
Well, maybe John Stanton is tired of paying their interpreters, just like Kevin Mather, former president, was. So maybe that's the case. So maybe John Stanton was on the same page with Kevin Mather. He only just got rid of him just to save his own skin.
Yeah, right. So John Stanton didn't, get up and lay out their business in front of the Bellevue, whatever it was.
The Bellevue Rotary Club. And
yeah.
I mean, the most of the things, looking back, what Kevin Mather said, he was basically saying what everyone else does. He just happened to get caught saying it.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you never lay out your business in public. I mean, everybody knew what the business was, but the Mariners were like, wink, wink, we're just not going to say it publicly. And there's Kevin Mather. I think he might have had a few before that Rotary Club. You know what I mean? He had a few vodka and tonics to loosen everything up, and then got up there and just freeballed and laid the Mariners' business out there in front of everyone.
Yeah, that's why Kyle Seager doesn't want anything to do with the Mariners. And at this point, I hate to say it too, before we close, I miss Nintendo. And I was saying how much I loathe the Nintendo ownership because the owner, now, yes, I will thank him that he bought this team because he did it as a sign of a gift.
Yeah.
but he didn't really do much. He just happened to delegate to bad people. Now, you can't put that too much on him, I guess. But the thing was, at least they had the Japanese connections for the free agents. At one point, the Mariners almost got Ichiro and Prime Griffey in the same team in 1999. Right.
Well, the crazy thing was that, but yeah, like it was a gift to the region, and I'm forever thankful to Nintendo because the Mariners were able to stay in Seattle. But that was a time in American sports where everything shifted because of TV money and the way that revenues were coming in. It wasn't like the old days where teams were reliant on game day receipts, right? They wanted to make sure they maximized revenue streams as sports were kind of gravitating toward that, which is why we saw teams build new stadiums that allowed them different revenue streams. And of course, so sports teams were hiring corporate executives to run their teams like corporate entities. And that's why every sporting league now in America feels like it's a corporate entity, because it was by design. So the Mariners just played it just like every other team did. And they were wildly successful when it came to revenue streams. And this team is a very profitable franchise because of it. And they're not going to change their operations. But the day, like I never thought I would be the day where somebody says that I miss Nintendo ownership. You know what I mean? Because that was the worst. That was one of the worst ownership groups. Now, when I say that there's worse ownership groups, I mean we can just go down to the Bay Area to the Oakland A's and we can see a bad ownership group. But for the fact that we have an ownership group that isn't going to move the team, so it's always going to be there, but they're not going to go the extra mile to win this team a championship. So from that standpoint, it's like I'm grateful that they're still there, but it's hard being a Mariner fan because how every single year is going to play out.
Crazy to think that I'm going to hate.
So in essence, what I'm saying is like we're like the San Jose Earthquakes of Major League Baseball. Like we know every single year how it's going to end, and it's going to end with us not in the playoffs.
Well, before I even, let's go a little bit further. I think Nintendo would have gotten Ohtani in 2018. I really do believe that. I think it would have been more likely because I thought at the time, I thought Ichiro was enough to get him, but it wasn't. But it didn't happen.
Well, because the Mariners had a commitment to Japanese players. That was a commitment from the Japanese ownership group that they had a firm connection and they had a firm commitment to making sure that Japanese ownership. If you remember, the Mariners were in play for Hideo Nomo back in the day, only to lose out because another team paid a higher price. They had
Dodgers
inside track. They had an inside track to Daisuke Matsuzaka, but they lost that bid to the Red Sox. But that being said, they were active and aggressive for biggest Japanese stars. And I would happen to agree with you. If Nintendo were in place in 2018 with that commitment to Japanese superstars, we probably would have had Shohei Ohtani, at least for 6 years.
And they would have gotten, and I think they still would have gotten Hideki Matsui, but the only reason why they didn't get him was because him and Ichiro had a rivalry with each other back in the Japan days. So that was basically it.
But do you think, though, that because Japanese culture is very different from American culture, right? Where rivalry is one thing, but they're gentlemen, right? Like the Japanese are a differential people where that thing is not like, for instance, right? Like I'll give you a good example. John Elway and Dan Marino had a rivalry that was taken off the field, and for years they didn't speak because each wanted what the other had as far as admiration and some of these other things that went. And it was only years later that they kind of bury that shovel. The Japanese people are very gracious to each other, right? So things that happen on the field tend to get left on the field. And I would probably assume that if the Mariners made a play for Godzilla and brought him to Seattle, that Ichiro and Hideki Matsui would have figured out a way to make that work.
Hey, even if they were fighting each other, or whatever it was, they still would have bowed to each other at the very end anyway.
I would think that because I don't think the Japanese have that ego issue like American ball players have, where the jealousy factor, because there's a lot of ball players that will hate on other ball players because of what they don't have, right? So they'll do whatever they can to attack the person who has all that admiration because they're just freaking jealous. I don't think the Japanese have that mentality.
I mean, look at Ichiro. He doesn't really speak to the media that much, and you don't really see Ohtani speaking that much. Like, the only time he really speaks is with his interpreter, and his game does the talking.
Well, I heard rumors back in the day because there were other American players that hated Ichiro because he thought that the Mariner organization catered to his every win. And Ichiro just showed up to the ballpark every single day and just did his job. You know what I mean? And that was it. You know what I mean? Like, you never heard Ichiro. Like, I never heard any rumor of Ichiro talking bad about any of his teammates.
Never heard. Just the organization, but that was at most where it got, and he was actually correct.
Now, the organization did what they felt was right because he was their face of their franchise, right? Which is why Home Dude ended up quitting his job. Mike Hargrove ended up quitting his job because the Mariners want, like, Mike Hargrove was like one of those old school managers where it's like, okay, well, you do what you do, but the lineup card is mine. So if I want to drop Ichiro down in the order, I'm going to do that. Mariner ownership was like, no, he's the leadoff guy, period. And Mike Hargrove was like, dude, no. I'm responsible for the lineup card, and now you're overstepping your bounds, and he quit. Right. So the organization did what they felt like they had to do. And of course that rubbed players the wrong way because they thought that maybe they treated Ichiro different from other players, but that never came from Ichiro. Ichiro just showed up and did his job and tried to get along with his teammates as best as he could. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The most underappreciated Mariner in Mariner history, Ichiro Suzuki. Fans didn't like him because he didn't hit the long ball. And I throughout his entire career, fans would always say, well, I see him hit home runs during batting practice. And it's like, who gives a shit? Like those balls are coming in at 30 miles an hour and he's just taking batting practice, right? If Ichiro could hit a home run on a whim, then he probably would have done it in the game. He probably would have done it.
He actually was capable of doing it, but he didn't want to do it. He loved base running.
But that was the alleged mystique of Ichiro, that he could do it on a whim. And it's like, no, dude, like, look at Ichiro's frame. Look at Ichiro's frame, dude. He's like 5'7", 100 pounds soaking wet. And he has good baseball. He had good baseball skills, and his batting, his batting stance and his approach to the plate were great, like some of the best ever. But that was not his game. Like, his game was to get, you're right, his game was to get on base, but he didn't have the power and the frame, the torque in his frame just to hit a home run on a whim. That's not how baseball is played. So fans got pissed at him because it was like they bought into this narrative that Ichiro is like this mystique character that can hit home runs on a whim. And it's like, that's not true. That's not how baseball works. And that's not hitting technique at all. And so it's like, dude, that dude was on base all the time for a decade. For all the time for a decade, he broke the single season hits record in a season, broke George Sisler's record in a season. That dude was on base all the time, giving the Mariners the best opportunity to win baseball games. And he was a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer. And Mariner fans literally took a shit on him during his playing career because he just wouldn't hit home runs. And it's like, dude, appreciate greatness while you've got it, and it's in your own backyard. You know what I mean? It's like, I never understood how Mariner fans would take an absolute giant shit on Ichiro when he was one of the best pure contact hitters next to Edgar Martinez that this franchise has ever had.
They only did it because they were just upset the Mariners were just run so poorly. They had to find something to blame, which I guess they pointed at Ichiro.
Right.
I'm also guilty. I'm also guilty as well, but it was only because he beat Korea in the 2009 World Baseball Classic in the finals. That was it. And I remember all of my classmates in my history class, all full of jocks and like athletes, by the way. They're like, "Hey Joe, did you see that Ichiro game winner?" And I was like, "Shut up." So I had a little butthurtness about Ichiro myself, but not because of home runs. Mine was just because of cultural reasons.
Is it Ichiro's fault that the Mariners hired Bill Bavasi and that drove that franchise into the ground? No.
Of course not. I mean, Ichiro didn't even tell him to do that. Ichiro was like, I'm just here to play baseball. Whatever.
Like, I have fond memories when I look back on the Ichiro era because it was one of the, like, we were witnessing Pete Rose. You know what I mean? Like, I remember growing up hearing the legend of Pete Rose and the way that he played the game, which was hard every single game. He played every game like it was Game 7 of the World Series. Even in All-Star games, I know you can go online right now and check out, I think it was the 76 All-Star game where he barreled into Ray Fosse that ended his career. But Ichiro played the exact same way. That dude was constantly on base, played the game hard, and, he always played his best. You know what I mean? That's like legendary stuff right there. Like, only the greats would ever do that, right? Michael Jordan played every game because he just, you never knew if he went to a city and somebody was watching him for the first time. Like, he wanted to make sure that every fan got to witness his greatness. And that was Ichiro Suzuki. He played hard all the time. I look back on it with fond memories, and Ichiro will always be an all-time great. And if the Mariners induct him to the Mariners Hall of Fame, number 51, that it's a.
We have him in the Mariners Hall of Fame. Now it's about getting him into the baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But that being said, it's like, you also have to show reverence for the other number 51 as well, too. So,
of course, not Randy Johnson, that is. But that is going to do it. We went over quite a bit. We went over Mitch Haniger, Jorge Polanco for a split second, the Gold Glove winners, possible free agents, and
take
hopefully take the money, Mitch. And hopefully this offseason doesn't end up like the last two off seasons, but the odds of that is it's probably going to make us say that, oh, I guess 2023 and 24 off seasons weren't so bad on how 2025 off season could be, but we'll find out. But until then, thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, use my promo code, and painfully saying, go Mariners.
Go Cougs.